you probably have seen or heard of before. And this problem, right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a formulation with many variables, just to show how many variables can affect our problem. So, and this is going to be a recurrent thing basically. We're going to come back to that next week. So, let's consider the problem of cutting stock. One of the most well-studied problems in mathematical programming and optimization. Cutting stock problem can be defined like this. Consider that we have a material, typically we consider a two-dimensional material that you can cut. Okay? Think of like a paper, for example. And each customer wants different sizes, different widths of paper. Okay? So a customer comes in and is like, I want a 2-inch width, or I want a 5-inch width, and so on. Right? So basically, what I want to do is I want to cut that paper and produce the stock that the customer wants. I cannot satisfy all customers with one piece of paper. Maybe I'm going to need to introduce more of them, right? And cut them accordingly. So the question is, how much paper, how many rolls, big rolls of paper, would they have to waste in order to satisfy all customers? This happens a lot in additive manufacturing, right? 3D printing. We see that because you have a material, you want to cut a specific size. You don't want to have too much waste. We see that whenever we have mills, lumber mills, right? Not every customer wants the same size of like lumber cut for them. Others want a bigger width or a less width. Clearly, this problem can be generalized in 3 dimensions, right? For more realistic shapes, but we're going to concentrate on 2 dimensions. So let's again see what we have. We have big, I'm going to name them big rolls. So big rolls of width W big. So this is basically what I have. And I don't only have one of them, right? I have multiple of those. And customers comes in and they want a number of BI of small rolls of width WI. And of course, I can easily assume that WI is less than or equal to big W. I can assume that no customer is going to come in when they know that I have, let's say, 10 feet of paper and they're going to ask for 12 feet. So let's see a small example. Let's say that I have a width of 10, a big W equal to 10, and let's say that I have 3 types of customers, W1 equal to 2, W2 equal to 4, and W3 equal to 5. And let's say that the first customer has asked for 3 of those, the second customer has asked for 2 of those, and the third customer has asked for 2 of those. Okay? Then basically that means that I need to cut the fewest number of rows such that I satisfy all the customers. A first solution that comes to mind, I'm pretty sure it's optimal, is I need 2 rows, actually, yep, I need 3 rows, right? So let's say the first roll is going to be cut at 2, 2, and 2 to satisfy the first customer. The third row, the remaining part is 4. I'm going to cut 1 of those for the second customer. Then I'm going to create a second roll where I'm going to cut 5 and 5. And then I'm going to have to cut a third roll, and I'm going to have to cut 4 of them. And this is basically wasted. Make sense? I've cut everything, and I've satisfied all the demand. Clearly, in the best case scenario, I don't have any left over in the end, right? And I cut the minimum number of rolls totally, right? We are going to assume here, and this is a very recent development in cutting stock. Some people say, okay, I want to minimize also the remaining cutting stock in the end, and I have leftovers that I can use for the next order, right? Something like that. But in our case, we're going to assume that you've paid 1, 2, 3 rolls. This one goes to waste. You cannot really reuse it anymore, which is not realistic, but we're going to assume that in this case. Any questions about the problem? So let's go ahead. Let's try and formulate it, right? And like I did before, I'm going to come up with 2 attempts. Attempt 1 and attempt 2. And I'm going to try to compare them really quickly. So let's go with attempt 1. I need variables. So the first variable that I'm going to use is a variable called zi. Actually, let's name it zj. And it's going to be 1 if big role j is used and 0 otherwise. So I'm going to assume that there are big roles in the inventory, and I'm going to ask for specific big roles. I'm going to ask for big role number 5, big role number 9, big role number 11. Since all big roles are the same, without loss of generality, I could assume that it's not 5, 7, and 11, but instead 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But anyways, this is the main idea here, that if I use a role, then zj, if I use role j, then zj becomes equal to 1. I want to minimize the number of roles used, so here is my objective function. So if I use 3 roles, then z1, z2, z3 would be equal to 1, or it could also be z5, z11, z15 equal to 1. In any case, this is 3 in both cases, right? So it doesn't matter which one I cut. So think of it like that. I have a warehouse, and in the warehouse I can assume I have 100 roles waiting, and then I have 100 variables, z1 to z100, okay? The second variable that I'm going to need is a variable yij, and it's going to say is 1. Actually, no, sorry. I'm not going to do a 0, 1 formulation for this one. I'm going to do a number, which is the number of roles wi that are cut at big role j. Again, let's see a small example. Let's say that I have this big role over here, and I got W1 here, W2, W3, and then W1 again. Notice that there is no reason why I wouldn't cut W1, W1, W2. It doesn't matter, right? The interchangeability over there. So then Yij, Y1j would be equal to 2, Y2j would be equal to 1, Y3j would be equal to 1, Y4, Y5, Y6, Y whatever j would be equal to 0. And remember, I know Wi, so I know how many different values for Wi I have. Maybe I have 2 customers that want the same width, right? Then I can treat them as 1 customer. All clear? If I have those variables over there, then it's basically pretty straightforward to model the problem. There are 2 constraints. 1, I have a capacity constraint on the cuts that I can do in a big row. 2, every customer needs to be satisfied. Okay? So my formulation for attempt 1 is going to be minimize the number of rows that you cut such that you satisfy, you have a budget constraint on the width over here. So basically, the summation over all i's of Yij multiplied by Wi, which is the I that you do, has to be less than or equal to big W. Clear? Tiny detail there. Remember that I cannot cut unless I've selected it. So basically, if I've selected big row, then I can cut it. Otherwise, I shouldn't be allowed to. Right? So basically, I'm going to multiply here by zj. Let's review that constraint one more time. This one tells me how many times I am cutting demand I with I from role j. This one tells me how wide width I is. So then in the end of the day, if I have 2 Wi's and 1 W2 and 1 W3, that should be less than or equal to the total width over here. Now we need to remember that some of those roles j are going to stay in the warehouse. They're never going to come to play. So that's why I'm saying if I've selected it to be cut, then I can cut as much as I want, up to W. If I haven't selected it, then you cannot cut it. It stays in the warehouse. The second constraint has to do with the demands, basically. So we have that the summation of j of yij has to be bigger than or equal to the demand that the customers have given us, right? Di. And clearly, this is going to have to be for all j. This one is going to have to be for every customer I. And then we also have the binary nature of zj and yij. Now, computationally, this formulation is proven to be weak.
Yij is not equal to 0, 1.
Ah, yeah, yij is integer. You're absolutely right. Sorry about that. So, unfortunately, this formulation has been shown to be computationally weak. How do we define computationally weak? We define it by saying if I take the linear relaxation, aka I allow Zj to be between 0 and 1, that means use half stock or use 1/3 of a stock, right? And I allow also Yij to be cut, which notice is clearly infeasible, right? If I have, let's say, a width of 10, and I have a customer that wants 3, right? I cannot say, well, 3, 3, 3, and 1/3 of 3 for later, right? The customer clearly cannot use the 1 over there, okay? So, if I do that, then we observe that the optimal solution of the linear relaxation is very, very far away from the optimal solution of the integer problem, right? Basically, that means that the relaxation is not tight at all. So people have started looking into that, and they're like, maybe there is a better way to formulate this. Maybe I can come up with a different type of attempt to do that. And remember that in the knapsack problem, we did something similar. The first one looks pretty similar, simple, but we've shown that in some cases, this one outperforms it. Well, in the cutting stock, the second one always outperforms it. So basically, let's take a look at the attempt 2, okay? I don't need those things over here, actually. So I'm not going to need to have the variables like I have before. I'm only going to need one variable. So there is a conceptual leap coming up. So let's make sure that we follow the first formulation. Okay. So let's take a look at introducing a new type of variable. And that new type of variable is going to need us to define a pattern S.
This is attempt 2. This is attempt 2.
Attempt 2. Sorry. So let's define a pattern S. A pattern S is going to be defined as follows. As a vector with one component for every type of cat that people want. So if I have 3 cats, then that would have 3 components. If I had 10 cats, that would have 10 components. And then it's going to have every possible pattern that is feasible. That is, for example, let's consider the following values. W, big W equal to 10, W1 is equal to 2.1, W2 is equal to 4.1, and W3 is equal to let's make this one a little bigger. Let's make this one 6.1. Then, possible patterns would be, this one would be a possible pattern. 1 from W1, 1 from W3, 0 from W2. This one would be a pattern. This one is also a pattern. Right? I satisfy the criterion. So I try to enumerate all possible patterns. Notice the similarity, like before. We tried to enumerate all possible covers. Now we enumerate all possible patterns. Okay? So if I know the patterns, right, then basically what I need to do, let's define a variable xs, which is basically the number of big rows with pattern s. So if you cut 5 big rows with the first pattern, that means that you obtain 5 for customer 1 and 5 for customer 3. If I cut 4 big rows with pattern 2, that means that I satisfy 16 of customer 3. Make sense? So then, what do I want to do? I want to minimize the patterns I use such that I satisfy every customer.
Each pattern has a specific amount of waste.
Oh, it doesn't matter. We don't care about it. It's a possible pattern. We don't care about that. Think of it like that. Let's say that I only have customer 3 coming in. Only customer 3. And they ask for 5 rows. I cannot like come up with a different pattern just to satisfy them. I need to use 004 and 001. So you see that every pattern comes to play, even if it has waste. We're not looking at the idea of a minimal cover like we did before. That's smart, right? We can incorporate that if we knew that there existed a solution where there was no waste. If somebody could guarantee that, then yes, a minimal cutting stock cover would be very interesting to investigate. Make sense? Right? Does the question make sense? So we said why consider 004 and 001 and not only 004, since it's a maximal, let's say, cover, like that leaves the least waste. But I mean, we cannot really do that because sometimes we might have leftovers that we need to unfortunately use. So in this case, for example, if a customer comes in and needs 5, I need to do 004 and 001, or 003 and 002, or 002 and 003, right? But I mean, I still need to have that pattern. Of course, a pattern of zeros everywhere, that wouldn't help me at all. Every pattern needs to satisfy at least one demand. This is the formulation over here, okay? So this formulation over here, and let's just make it a little nicer. So this is for all S's that belong to the set of patterns. This is for all S's that belong to the set of patterns, and this is of course that XS has to be has to be 0 and 1. This is a much tighter formulation with one important caveat. The important problem is enumerating the patterns is a computationally expensive job. So as we're going to see sometime next week, we can come up with something smart. We don't have to generate all patterns. We can just generate some patterns, see what the solution is, and then see whether introducing a new pattern is going to improve the solution. And that's basically the whole idea of column generation. I think you had a question?
For the SS,
Mm-hmm. So XS is XS has to be an integer. I keep doing the same mistake. XS has to be positive and integer, of course. Because XS is the number of rows that follow a pattern. Thank you for that. So this brings us to try to summarize all of those things. Okay? Packing, covering, partitioning. Those are 3 terms that you are going to be hearing a lot in industrial engineering. Packing, covering, partitioning. We've already kind of mentioned covering here. So let's see what the other 2 are. Partitioning, we kind of know what partitioning is, right? Try to find a separation of 2 sets or multiple sets. So let's see how those come to play. So packing, covering, partitioning. So, assume you have a universe of items S. They could be people, like Chris, Mustafa, Tim, Rui, and so on, right? Or they could be numbers, or they could be anything that you want, right? It's a universe of elements. And we also have a family of sets, basically. F1, F2, Fm. For example, students, professor, those would be two sets, right? The student set is much bigger, but it doesn't matter. Okay, the professor set is much smaller, but again, doesn't matter. Like, it's a set of the elements in S. So basically what we have is we have an F1, F2, and so on. They are subsets of the original universe space S. All clear? So in our example earlier, right, each pattern would be a family, and the set S would be all the patterns, basically, all the demands. So in the end of the day, I was looking for a way to combine those two, find a solution that covers everything and uses, let's say, the smallest number of families or something like that. Are we all clear with the notation, or kind of clear with the notation? So S is a universe space of elements. F, F1, F2, F3 is a set of families of elements. Okay? So, we are looking to find a set C that is a subset of S. Okay? A set C that is a subset of S. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a subset of S. 1, 5, 10 would be a subset of S. Such that, here is where I'm going to break it down into 2 or 3 cases. So, a packing of F if C intersects Fi at most once. So, remember, F1, F2, those are families that contain elements from here. So, a packing is something that intersects every family at most once. Okay? Let's give an example, right? Let's say students, professor, right? The empty set is a packing. It intersects students and professors at most once. Chris and Mustafa is a packing because it intersects the family of students and professors at most once. Chris, Mustafa, and Satpal is not a packing anymore because it intersects the set of students twice. Make sense? So this is what we refer to as a packing. Because the empty set is a feasible solution, don't select anything from anyone. You intersect everyone at most once, right? Actually, you intersect everyone exactly 0 times. That's why the packing makes sense in a maximum packing sense, right? Maximize the profit that you get from selecting everyone such that you choose at most one from every group. Okay? So think of a pharmaceutical trial, 5 different groups. You want to select 1 patient from each group such that you maximize the experimental profit that you get, right? Then selecting 2 shouldn't be allowed because then you have conflicts inside the group. So basically that would be a maximum packing over there. Okay? We refer to C as a partition. So this is a packing. This is a partition of F. So what do you think happens now? Clearly, I'm going to use the same notation, right? If C intersects each Fi, packing at most once. Partitioning, typically when we partition something, do we have any intersections? Do we have any multiple elements, for example? No, right? When we are partitioning something, we intersect every set exactly once. So now the empty set is no longer a physical solution because you haven't partitioned what's going on. The last one that we've been seeing quite a bit today is called the cover of F. Oh, I keep saying F. Yeah. Sorry about that. A cover of S if C intersects Fi least once. And we have the well-known problem of set cover. I wasn't planning on teaching that, but I just thought about it, so I think it's interesting to see it really quickly before I move on to the next part. So we have a set of elements, S. Let's say that they have 6 elements, and let's say that they have the following 3 families. So basically a set cover is a set C such that it intersects F at least once. So in this case, could I do 3 and 4? Does 3 and 4 cover hit it at least once? How about this one? At least once? How about this one at least once? How about this? Would it still be a cover? 3, 4, 5? Still a cover, right? At least once. So I hit 2 here and 2 here, but it doesn't really matter. Okay? Make sense?
No.
How about a partition? This is a partition, right? Because hit it once, exactly once, exactly once. But now if I do this is no longer a partition. And last, the packing. This is a packing at most once. Right? At most once, 0, 0. But this is not a packing. Because it hits one element, it hits one family. Okay? So this is not a packing. A packing has to intersect each family at most once. It hits the first family twice. Okay? So this is the main, like those 3 are notions that keep coming back. In the knapsack we had the cover. In the cutting stock we had basically an idea of a packing mostly.
And it would still not be a packing even if 2 is a member of F2 in addition to F1?
Yes, it would still not be a packing because it would hit this twice. It would intersect with the first family twice. Make sense? If this was not there and it was here, then this is now a packing. Since it hits this one at most once, this one at most once, this one at most once. Actually, this one is 0, but it doesn't matter. So do we see why it's interesting to find the maximum packing? The maximum packing would cover, like we will try to maximize the size of elements that we can add and intersect everything at most once. Do we see the interest in finding the minimum set cover? Cover all elements, right? Such that they cover at least once. And so you see that basically, and also we are interested in finding good partitions, such that, let's say, balanced partitions. Tim, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I'm just checking the definitions here. So let's see if that set C was 1 and 4,
Okay.
where you can choose between F2 or F3. Are you
Oh,
allowed?
no. Every family. I need to intersect with every family. So I intersect with family F1 once. I intersect with family F2 once. I intersect with family F3 once. So I am a packing.
Okay.
I happen to also be a partition because I satisfy that exactly once. And I happen to also be a cover because I do it at least once. Okay? If this one is not there, that's a packing because at most once,